A manager is one who manages complexity, processes, systems, deliveries. So what does it mean? Young friends, please be aware, world is changing. I said globe is village, world is flat, there are no political boundaries. You can operate a global company from here, from this village. You don't have to operate from Paris, London, New York, Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong. Those days are gone. Why? Technology is available, communication is free flow, there are no boundaries now. So people can operate in Noida, people can operate in Gurgaon, people can operate from this village. So it makes a difference for you. You can become a global manager. Global manager doesn't mean you need to work in Paris or London or in Frankfurt or in Germany or in New York to become a global manager. Please be aware. Global manager doesn't mean that you need to work and go in, but you need to understand, appreciate and have a global outlook. So I think fundamentally, whether you are in HR, whether you are in marketing, whether you are in finance or any functions for that matter, please have a global outlook. I think when I said global outlook, I am not talking in the air. I am talking in a very layman's language. Please understand what is happening around you. It's not only in the school, but what is happening in this place, what is happening in this country, what is happening globally. Why? You may be doing extremely well in terms of your economy, which relatively speaking, as you know, India and China is doing much better than most of the advanced economies. But doesn't China, because if US is not doing well, your IT business is impacted. Europe is not doing well, your financial services is impacted. So I think it's important that we need to have that global outlook and then focus on that. This is what the globalization. That means apply the global principle to require to your local conditions. Number one. Number two, I think everybody is a people's manager. Today's world, if we have done, National HRD Network has done a survey we have interviewed through Peter Capelli and others from US Ivy universities to get the unbiased view of 75 Indian business leaders and professionals about 5-6 years back. We asked them we had an extensive interview, but we asked them one question commonly for everybody: what are the key 5 business challenges you have? Everybody in the top 5, number 1 or number 2, they said people. Growth and people. These are the key challenges. What does it mean? I think, you may have a great branch, as I said, you may have a great financial strength, but that can build it in a day, but you don't have the right kind of people. So, understand the landscape in which you operate. What you know today, it may not happen the next day. I know Mr. Barman may get bored because he keeps listening to me many times in different forums. But I just want to ask you one question. Don't get get free tea here. I see there is a tea break after this. I think you need to work hard for it. Tell me which company produces maximum cameras in the world. Nikon, Panasonic, Sony, Canon. Sorry, Nokia. Go and see Google. What has happened? What is Nokia is known for? It's a mindset issue. It's where you should read the book what Dr. Ranveer Singh has written. Do you know his book? He has written a book? I must have written many books. I read one book which he has given it to me. Innovation and creativity. What does it mean? Innovation, creativity doesn't mean keep on doing research. Don't waste too much of time. I've got some comments on analytics, but I would like to contain this. And don't do analytics beyond a point. Analytics should be reference to your businesses and the sectors in which you work with. For everything, you can't keep on doing too much of analytics. Because you've got everything. Data is available plenty. Those days are gone. Why you keep on wasting? You should be able to take a decision and execute it. Don't keep on, then you get confused. Analysis and paralysis. I think, this is one caution I want to give. Please bear with me. I'm not saying analytics is not important. Beyond a point. For instance, marketing. I'm in life insurance industry. I think, for me, demographics, earning capacities, rural backgrounds, veteran capacity to pay, all this is important. Male, female, education. But, for a HR, beyond a point. you get everything, data is getting outdated. There is no point in spending too much time on analytics. But don't get into analysis and paralysis. To be able to take your decisions, it should be means to achieve an end, but that it should not be an end by itself. You understand what I mean? Analytics, so I don't want to confuse analytics, just park it, just coming back on this. So I think you need to think as a management students. Think about the big picture first. Whether HR, marketing doesn't matter. You see, Mr. Barman is a marketing man. And he has chosen training and he doesn't want to be training organizational behavior. You see, you need to get passion for it. I think to get a rounded experience is better. I envy him. I know I have not changed my name, I have not changed my profession. But I have been in HR for the last 42 years, 41. But my company's name I changed 4 times. Why? Mergers and acquisitions. So there are certain things which is in your hands, certain things which is not in your hands. But you should make it happen, how you can manage them. That is why cope up with change. It is not just a statement. Cope up with change means world is changing. Today, once upon a time civil engineers are not respected much. They were not getting jobs, you know that? You know the most sought after profession? Civil engineers today. So these things keep changing. So, you should keep changing with the times. If you can't change with the times, unless you know what's happening, that's where analytics helps. That's where outlook will help. But beyond a point, you need to be able to take your decisions. Ultimately, a person is respected not only for coping up with change, deliver what you promise. Execution has become strategic. Execution is no longer tactical. There's a famous book by Professor Ramcharan who has written on execution, outstanding book. So when you're talking about performance management, there is no point in just saying performance contemporary, I want excellent, robust performance process, which is not showing any motivation to employees. As Professor Jaggi said, it doesn't show any reward and recognition, it doesn't show any motivation, employees engagement, it doesn't show any business growth. Such processes are no good. You might have designed by McKinsey, doesn't matter. I think what is important is what is good for the organization, what is good for the people, and ultimately what is good for the community and society, which leads to it. So I think it's important when you're talking about these things. And just to park one more aspect I want to say. What are the key competencies required for a good people's manager? They've said 5, especially HR competencies, since we are talking about HR currently. Number 1, strategic contribution. That means you need to develop that cultural management in the company, vision, the values, and how they're implemented. Number 2, change management. Whenever there is a change, how do you bring those changes? And number 3, how do you recognize talent? And number 4, how do you reward the high performance? And how do you address the poor performance? Performance management doesn't mean that you only start rewarding high performance and people who have got potential, but leave those people who are not doing well. That performance system will never work. You need to address all. There are 3 kinds of people here. Number 1, people with high performance, some of them with potential as well. You need to recognize them, stars or listers, whatever you call. Number 2, you need to address poor performance. This is where the art of tough love comes in. Tough on issues, soft on people, but you need to take tough calls. In India, we are afraid because he is my friend. I can't tell him, Mr. Barnum cannot tell Dwarka, you say, yeah, you're no good. You have to improve. Because we are hesitant, because they think that I become his enemy. That's not right. Professionally, that is why tough on issues, soft on people. Do it nicely. Don't hurt him. But you have to convey the message. Number 3, which we tend to ignore, is value solid citizens. While you recognize and promote and encourage people who are the key performers, who could be 10-15%, and you address the poor performance, who could be 5-10%, but there are 40-50% in the organization who are called solid citizens. You may call any word. What does it mean? They are people who significantly contribute to the business, but do not have potential to take leadership role. For example, For example, I will give you examples. I think when you are able to say you should have a clarity of thought, don't just say you learn the concept, you need to apply the concept to practice. What is it? For instance, if an FMCG company like Nestle, Weavers, GlaxoSmithKline, consumer companies, who are the solid citizens could be in an FMCG company like Horlicks, Nestle? Who will be solid citizens? Solid citizens are not managing directors. Who are the solid citizens? Who really the lifeline of the company? Sales. Field force. If you take a pharmaceutical company, medical reps. If you take a life insurance agents, right? If you take a healthcare nurses, doctors are there, but nurses play an important role. They may not see as a stars, but they significantly contribute to the business. So you cannot just ignore them in performance management system because, whoa, they are important, but they are not that important. Because the research says, while you need to recognize meritocracy, you need to differentiate rewards based on performance. The system should be robust, communication should be clear, there should not be ambiguity and all fine, taken for granted. The measurement should be there. But most of the top performers leave the organization. They are vulnerable, that's the research says. So what will happen? Ultimately, who run the businesses are those who are in the solid citizens. So I think you need to address all the three. So it's a holistic approach. In performance management, you need to do it. It is not in the bits and pieces you will handle it. Number two, the second aspect is performance management system should align to your HR overall system of the organization. Your philosophy of managing performance, recognizing key talent, addressing poor performers, having measurements, business growth, and then could be variable pay, incentives based on the business growth and all that. It depends on the organization to organization. There is one thing we need to bear in mind when you're talking about people processes. I don't call HR processes. These are all people processes. There is no one size fits all. It depends on the organization. Even in the same organization, if you have different businesses, for instance, in Max, we have life insurance, we have health insurance, we have healthcare, we have clinical research, we have specialty fillers. All the businesses are very different, very diverse. So you need to have different types of, you have same principles, but different measures to do the performance. So I think, it's important, there is no one size fits all. Sometimes you get into this syndrome, oh, this is a good practice, let me blindly follow. You need to see whether this is applicable. I'll give you one example. Have you heard about 360-degree feedback? Yes. Everybody talks it's a nice thing to have. If you want to introduce 360-degree feedback in all earnest and in a very genuine fashion, first you need to understand the culture of the organization. Are you willing to give a feedback about your boss? Number one. If you give your feedback, will you be able to survive in the organization? Number two. And secondly, how far it's kept confidential. And whether used as a constructive measure or it is used as a inimical, destructive measures. I think, this is important. In India, so some organizations are mature. And, GSK, when the global company said, I'm talking about 20 years back, he said, we'll do that. I told him, we are not still there. Don't do it. No, we'll do it. Everybody said, boss is great. So, and ultimately, we could not get any feedback. So, I think, ultimately, then we said, no, we will have 360 feedback only for senior management. It worked. Then we came to the middle management and so on. So, it is a maturity, cultural maturity of the organization, which is important when you are talking about any performance management system. Please do understand what is your HR philosophy, how it aligns your business strategy. And secondly, where are you in terms of your maturity? What kind of people you have in the organization and how you can drive the processes, how you communicate them, how do you measure them is important. And secondly, I think when you're talking about performance management system, it can be linked with the reward. It can be little bit performance based, only reward will come. Whether you do it in the same system or you give us some gap, there are many issues. I don't want to get into debate. The only thing is it should be objective, it should be transparent, communication should be very clear. But you have to bear one thing in mind, any people process, there is an element of subjectivity. You agree? Any process, however well it is designed, what does it mean? You may have a great tool for selecting a person, but ultimately Mr. Burman has to apply his judgment. He may give 7 points, I may give for the same candidate 8 points. How could it be different? It can't be clinical or mechanical, right? You agree with me? So I think only thing what happens is when you have a robust performance management system, to a large extent it eliminates bias, favoritism, and minimizes the error judgment of people. But it cannot 100% eliminate it, but it can minimize. And secondly, there is a transparency and consistency. I think students know how they are evaluated by the management of the school, and it is not something which they kept in the pocket. So I think that makes the performance management system. It needs to be well understood, communicated, and executed well. And there should be credibility between the organization and it. It's easy to be said, but difficult to exclude unless it is done with passion. Coming back on the 5 competencies, we said strategic contribution. Number 2, HR delivery. Deliver what you promise, as I said. If you don't keep scoring, you are just practicing. There is no point in saying I play very well in the nets. I hate to talk on cricket now, but having said that, you see, there's no point in saying, I play very well, I got all the strokes in the nets, but you have to score in the match. Ultimately, what matters is you score. So if you don't keep scoring, you're just practicing. I think, HR suffers from that syndrome sometimes. We talk much, we basham then we say these are best practices. You need to understand how does this best practice would help this organization and its people. If they can't help it, there is no point in having that because it is nice to have it. As I said, our example, 360-degree feedback. Number 3, credibility. I think it's important that HR is trusted, HR is felt that they are a facilitator. Any business manager who is dealing with people, people come to you beyond a point, not because you hold a positional authority, but you have a personal influence. You understand what I'm saying? Positional authority kya hai? Positional authority because I am the director group HR. If I call somebody, he has to listen to me, whatever version I give him. Maybe counseling, coaching. But will he come on his own to seek advice from me? If he comes on his own to seek advice to me, that means he not only respects me for my position, but he respects from me for my competence. And he trusts me. So that is the difference between a personal influence versus positional authority. Personal influence you can get only when you are an inspiring leader. Yeah, that means you can reach to people, you show humility. I think one of the things which we need to say, I must compliment you, you got into a good school, great infrastructure. How many people have these facilities, what you have here? But I think, you should not throw away because you got an MBA degree tomorrow, PGDM, whatever it is, and you join Maruti Suzuki and all that. That's the end of the life, I've become achieved. That's not the end of life. That's the beginning of your life. Success starts from there. It's a journey. It's not the end. So I think if it goes to your head, you're finished. That is why they said in Good to Great, there's a great book on research, which said that there are 2 hallmarks of a great person. Great person doesn't mean, you should be Jack Welch's. Everyone can become in his own way. You have to build your own milestones. Professional will, you need to have some ambition of your own. It should not be greedy. Just be contented what you earn. Have a milestone which is achievable, smart, go. And number 2, exhibit personal humility. Success should not go to head. Unfortunately, when the higher you go up in the corporate world especially, success go to your head. You see, today you may be successful with one incident, one failure in the business, you can be nowhere. So I think, it needs to be important that, ultimately what makes a person a good leader is an inspirational, he maintains that professional will and personal humility. That is the reason, even if you see the good to great, Jack Welch, though considered to be a great leader, corporate guru, he was not rated level 5 leadership. Level 5 leaders are those who have never been seen much in the, Steve Jobs is there, not there. Bill Gates is not there. Jack Welch is not there. Because perhaps they lack one of them. So I think, it's important that, and the fourth, for any business manager, it's not only HR, knowledge of the business. Unless you have the knowledge of the entire business, I said go outside. Now, outside in view, understand the global environment also. If you don't have knowledge of the business, HR, especially in HR, you can't succeed. Most of them suffer from it because they have a very inward looking. For a business manager and especially for a HR manager, your key customer is no longer the employee. The employee is the important customer. I'm making a very, very provocative statement. Your focus is of your key stakeholders. For me, if I want to run my health hospitals, max hospitals, I need to understand what sort of patients I get. Then I can motivate my employees how to make them customer delight. So unless I know it is not. And last but not the least, techie savvy. I think these are the 5 key competencies we need to have in order to achieve. So as I talked about performance management, it should be transparent, it should be open, it should be